Broadcasting.
Alan, if you want to bring up your video.
Hello, everybody. I can see there are some participants signed in to join us for the meeting. You're in the right place. We're going to give folks a few more minutes. This is John Doherty, MBTA Project Manager. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to to settle in, and then we'll get started. Hello to those who have just joined. If you joined to attend the Intervale Road Bridge Replacement meeting, you're in the right place. We're just giving folks another minute or so to sign in. We'll be kicking off shortly. Okay, let's get started. Hello, everybody. I'm John Doherty. I'm the project manager for the MBTA on the Intervale Road Bridge Replacement Project. So we do have a few bookkeeping issues that we would like to review with you. I'm going to begin by reading, well, first I'm going to note that please be advised that this meeting is being recorded. And I'm going to read from Governor Baker's modification to the open meeting law that was put in place as a result of the COVID-19 circumstances. On March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law to enable public bodies to carry out their responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations regarding social distancing. The executive order relieves public bodies from the requirement of the open meeting law that meetings be conducted in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, provided that the public body makes provision to ensure public access to the deliberations of the public body through adequate alternative means. Adequate alternative means may include, without limitation, providing public access through telephone, internet, or satellite-enabled audio or video conferencing, or any other technology that enables the public to clearly follow the proceedings of the public body in real time. A municipal public body that, for reasons of economic hardship and despite best efforts, is unable to provide alternative means of public access in real time may instead post on its municipal website a full and complete transcript, recording, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as practicable afterwards. In addition, all members of a public body may participate in a meeting remotely. The open meeting law's requirement that a quorum of the body and the chair be physically present at the meeting location is suspended. All other provisions of the open meeting law, such as the requirements regarding posting notice of meetings and creating and maintaining accurate meeting minutes, as well as the limited enumerated purposes for holding an executive session, remain in effect. And again, please note that this meeting will be recorded and posted online following the meeting.
Okay, John, thank you. This is Alan Belmiak from VHP, one of the members of the project team, and I'm going to walk you through how the meeting is going to proceed tonight. So thanks for joining us. Before we get started, I just want to outline the process of how this is going to work. I know for some people this is the first time attending such a meeting, but we do want to make sure everyone has an opportunity to share some content. This meeting is being recorded, as we mentioned earlier, and it will be posted online following the meeting, and it may also be later broadcast on local access TV. To prevent disruptions in the meeting flow, your webcams and videos and audio will be turned off during the meeting, and again, you'll be muted just to avoid any excessive background noise. We will, however, open up the mic later on for questions and answers after the technical presentation has been delivered. We request that you share only one question at a time, out of respect to give everyone a chance to participate. If there's time remaining at the end of the meeting, you may share a second question or comment. You may also submit your comments after the meeting, if we run out of time, to the project email address, which is intervalerdbridge@mbta.com. That's intervalerdbridge@mbta.com. And we'll post that email address later on in the concluding slide. As with standard public meetings practice in person, we ask attendees to identify themselves so we have a record of who attended. If your name on the Zoom does not clearly identify who you are, then please take the moment now to rename yourself to your first and last name. During the course of the meeting, the project team may rename participants if they have not done so themselves. This would occur, for example, if someone uses an email address as their Zoom name or they call in via telephone. At the beginning of the Q&A session, if you haven't renamed yourself on Zoom to clearly identify who you are, a member of the project team will ask you to individually speak your name just so we can rename you. Additionally, if you are calling in from a telephone, you will be called upon by the last digits of your phone number and asked to state your first and last name so we can rename you just the same. This applies to everyone, even if you don't plan to ask a question. This is so we have a record of who attended, similar to asking participants to sign in at an in-person public meeting. If you would like to submit a typed comment or question, you may do so using the Q&A feature, which can be found on the bottom row of buttons on your screen in the black bar. When the Q&A answer portion of the meeting begins, we'll first respond verbally to questions and comments that have been typed into the Q&A feature. If you wish to share a question or comment verbally, you can also use the raised hand button, which is also located in the bottom strip of commands at the bottom of the screen. But please wait to raise your hand until the Q&A session has started so we can kind of adequately track who's coming in. After you raise your hand, we will we'll open your mic and permit you to unmute your own mic, let you recognize you with your name and unmute you. And then after you share your question or comment, we will lower your hand and then return you to the muted state, again, just to keep the background noise to a minimum. If you're joining by phone, you may follow along the presentation, which is posted online to the project event site. You can go to mbta.com/intervalerdbridge, and that's all one word, mbta.com/intervalerdbridge, and click the learn more, and join the Intervale Road meeting to locate the presentation materials. And lastly, if you're joining by phone and would like to share a question or comment during the Q&A session, You may also raise your digital hand by pressing *9. Again, that's *9 to raise your hand if you're dialing in via telephone. And again, please wait to raise your hand until the Q&A portion of the meeting starts. And like the others, when it's your turn to speak, you'll be notified that you're unmuted. You can then share your question or comment, and then we'll be placed back on mute again. And just please note that all participants asking questions will have your names read aloud for the public record. And just one final reminder is that this meeting is being recorded. And so with that, I'd like to pass it back to John.
Great. Thanks, Alan. So just to get started again, hello everyone. Welcome to the Intervale Road Bridge Replacement Project online public meeting. I'm John Doherty. I'm a senior project manager with the MBTA, and I'm the project manager for this design build program. I want to thank you all again for your interest in this project and taking the time to attend and participate in this online public meeting. I also want to thank elected officials for attending. I haven't actually seen any yet, but if they do, we're certainly going to acknowledge them. We look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and that applies to all participants in the meeting. We're going to start with an overview of the project history, scope of work, and schedule. We'll discuss how and when the proposed work may affect you. This is an important project and a key component to our continued efforts to improve the state of good repair for our commuter rail system. The Intervale Road Bridge was originally built in 1911 and is, approaching the end of its useful life. So while we're here today to discuss the Intervale Road Bridge replacement, I want to share that this is a part of a larger design build program, which includes the replacement of 6 different bridges in the commuter rail system, all contained within this, all of them are a part of this program. Accompanying me today is members of the design build team. Barletta Heavy Division is the contractor, and they are represented by Gary Orlando and Scott Miles. And VHB is the project designer, and they are represented by Bob Penfield, Andrew Burkholder, and Brent, I forgot your last name.
Richard.
Brent Richard, thank you, sorry. I do meet with these guys quite often, so it's kind of embarrassing. But at any rate, with that, I'm gonna slide the presentation of the slide deck over to Bob, and he's gonna run through the detail and context related to this particular bridge replacement. Thanks again for joining, and we'll talk to you. I'll talk to you again in the question and answer period. With that, Bob.
Thank you, John. Welcome, everyone. My name is Bob Penfield. I work at VHB, and we're part of the design build team partnered with Barletta, who is delivering this project for the MBTA. The slide up we've got on the screen right now shows a rough rendering of what the proposed bridge will look like once it's constructed. And as we go through the different slides, I just wanted to highlight one important point. Right now, we showed the shading and color of the steel components of the bridge, known as a superstructure. We are showing that in shades of blue, and that's purposeful in that it shows the contours, which help make it clear on the screen. But in practice, in real life, it would be painted black. But just wanted to point out that that nuance. Next slide. Again, meeting with you today, as John mentioned himself, as the MBTA project manager, Gary Orlando, who is the project manager with Barletta, myself, which is a design manager on the project, and Andrew Burkholder, who is our senior engineer on the project. Next slide. As John indicated, the outline for today's meeting is going to be as follows. We're going to discuss how this project fits into a larger design build program that the MBTA is delivering. Then we'll focus on the Intervale Road as a project itself. And with that, discussing its site location and some of the existing conditions, the project need and some of the goals, the proposed bridge layout and the design and detailing. And then we're going to walk through how the various construction stages we're going to use in order to build the bridge, and then how traffic would be impacted during those phases of construction. I'm going to highlight the schedule of the project and then identify some other opportunities for future public outreach, and then we will move right into the question and answer session. Next slide. So as we've mentioned, this particular project, the Intervale Road Bridge replacement, is part of a larger program. It's a design build program that involves the replacement of 6 different bridges, all located various spots along the MBTA's commuter rail system. Next slide. And this is a map showing the commuter rail system as a whole. And as you can see, relative to each other, where those 6 different bridges are located. We're here to talk about the Intervale Road Bridge, and nearby, also on the Framingham-Worcester line, just a bit outbound, is the Bacon Street Bridge, which is also part of this full program. Next slide. To give you an idea of how this program came about, it started back in 2016 with the preliminary design of each one of those 6 bridges. In 2017, the MBTA's Capital Delivery Department sought to accelerate the pace of their projects and decided to combine 6 individual projects into one large program, and then to use design build as the method to accelerate that program and to encourage more innovation. From 2018 and 2019, there was the procurement for that contract, and 9 teams had proposed on it, 3 were shortlisted, and ultimately the Barletta VHB team was selected as the best value. The project itself, or the program itself, will run from 2019 to 2022. And while the specific schedule would vary for each bridge within that full program will be complete by August of 2022. And as we get a little bit farther into the slides, we're going to talk about what the schedule is for the Intervale Road Bridge specifically. Next slide. So just to get an idea of where we are in space, here's a map showing the Intervale Road Bridge and its location. It's just to the west of the Leo J. Martin Memorial Golf Course. It is the Framingham-Worcester line over Intervale Road. Maybe next slide. And here we're going to zoom in so you can see where it is in space and some of the surrounding areas. All right, so here on this slide, you can see the existing bridge, which carries the inbound and outbound tracks, the Framingham-Worcester line. This corridor at one point actually carried 4 tracks, so there are 2 portions of the bridge that no longer carry tracks anymore. You can see the MBTA right away kind of shaded there. And then in the green rectangle that we've noted as a superstructure staging area, and that's going to take on more meaning later on in the presentation, where we would be constructing the new bridge before it gets moved into place. So we'll highlight that a little bit later. Next slide. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Andrew Burkholder, our senior engineer on the project. So thanks, Andrew.
Sure. Thanks, Bob. So I wanted to start by describing the existing conditions, what's out there today. As John mentioned, this structure was built back in the early 1900s. I think Bob mentioned that it was originally a 4-track structure, could carry 4 tracks, but today it's only carrying the 2 active tracks. The original structure is steel girders with an open deck, and then those are supported by the granite masonry abutments, and you can see those pictures to the right as the existing conditions. The distance between the faces of the abutments, or basically the roadway width, is 20 feet currently, and utilities in the area consist of signal and fiber optic lines that are carried by the bridge, and there's also the PTC, or positive train control, that is located as on overhead wires along this corridor. This bridge sees 52 commuter rail trains on any weekday and 18 commuter trains on each day of the weekend. It also sees periodic Amtrak and CSX freight traffic as well. Next slide, please. So why does this bridge need to be replaced? And basically, the existing structure is in poor condition. We typically rate bridges after they're inspected on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being great condition, 1 being basically out of service. So any rating of a 7 or 8 is a good rating. A 5 or a 6, we would consider that structure to be in fair condition. And below that, a 4 or 3, that's poor condition is how we would rate that. So this structure is rated in poor condition, and to continue the MBTA's goal to provide a safe and efficient transportation system for the T riders and the public, and to maintain its state of good repair, the structure is in need of replacement. Next slide. So again, our project goals, as I mentioned, we want to restore that state of good repair for the commuter rail system. Replace this aging structure with one that is resilient, would provide a 75-year expected service life. And we want to do that. We want to replace this bridge while minimizing impacts to the abutters, the commuter rail riders, and also the users of Intervale Road. And we'll do all that while respecting the historical nature of those existing granite block abutments through coordination with Weston Historical Commission and also the Mass Historical Commission. Next slide, please. So getting into a little bit of the new bridge design, it will be a complete bridge replacement. So it'll be a completely new structure. The track alignment and profile through here will remain the same, meaning we're not going to raise the tracks, lower the tracks, change their alignment. They're going to be in generally the same spot as they are now. We are going to use accelerated construction techniques, and you may have heard an acronym of ABC, or accelerated bridge construction. We're going to use those techniques throughout the project to, again, reduce those impacts to the abutters, to the users of Intervale Road, and to the T riders. I'd also like to mention that this design does allow or accommodate for a future third track through this corridor. The new bridge will have room for 3 tracks, but only 2 tracks will be replaced at the end of this project. As I mentioned, it's a brand new structure, single span, and we will be building the new abutments behind the existing in order to retain those granite block abutments. And all the construction will be within that MBTA right away. Next slide, please. So the graphic at the bottom of the screen represents a section view. If you were able to stand on Intervale Road and then slice the bridge in the ground right down the center line, this is what you might see. The brownish color is the existing granite abutments, and then you can see the new bridge, which consists of micropiles as the foundation and precast abutment or precast concrete abutment caps with concrete approach slabs, and then the steel superstructure shown there in blue. Again, as Bob mentioned, blue just to highlight on these slides. When most people hear piles, they think of a big pile driving machine, a big hammer, a lot of noise, a lot of vibration. These are much different than that. These are a type of pile that is actually drilled into place using equipment that's relatively small. It sits up on the track level, and it drills these piles down into the bedrock with very minimal noise and vibration. The vertical clearance here in the final condition will be 14 feet from Bacon Street to the bottom of the structure. Next slide, please. This view is taken as if you're standing up on the tracks and you're able to slice the bridge in half. So this is a transverse section. You can see here that we will have a ballasted through girder type bridge. And again, this bridge will support or can support 3 tracks in a future condition, but only 2 tracks are going to be installed with this project, and those are the existing tracks that are out there today. And it will have safety walks on both sides of the bridge. Next slide, please. As far as roadway improvements, I wanted to highlight these. This is a view looking down on the bridge with Intervale Road running left to right across the slide. You can see the darkened area in the vicinity of the bridge. This is the area that will receive new pavement and new striping at the end of the project. So it basically covers the limits of where those granite abutments are today. Next slide, please. So again, this is what you saw on the first slide to begin the meeting, again, showing what that bridge would look like, most likely look like in the final condition. But again, the pavement in this area would all be new. Next slide, please. So we wanted to step through some of the major construction operations to give you an idea of what you might see out there and how this bridge will actually get built. So this is a rendering of the area. You can see the bridge, the Intervale Road, and then the Leo J. Martin Golf Course here on the bottom side, or bottom portion of this graphic. And so we're going to step through a series of graphics and show you how it's actually going to happen. So next slide, please. The first step would be to actually provide access to the construction site. So we do need to build an access ramp as shown on the right side of the screen. And there's actually another ramp that's off the screen down to the left. And this allows us to get equipment needed up to the track level. And so here you can see a micropile rig being moved up that access ramp, and also some tree clearing in the vicinity of the bridge. Next slide, please. The next step would be to actually drill in these micropiles, as I mentioned before. So again, these are installed at the track level using equipment that's relatively small to reduce noise and vibration. And while this operation is going on, there would be no impact to the traffic on Intervale Road. Next slide, please. The next step in construction is to remove, it's actually demolition, it's removing those abandoned bays of the existing bridge. As I mentioned, it used to be a 4-track bridge. We need to remove portions of the existing bridge to provide space to assemble the new superstructure next to the existing. So in order to do this, we will need to close Intervale Road to vehicular traffic. And this is for 2 reasons. One is general space and access for the equipment that is needed to perform these operations. And it's also a safety concern. We're lifting heavy loads, overhead work. We really can't allow the general public to be in this vicinity when these types of operations are going on. Next slide, please. So our next step would involve what we would call a weekend shutdown. So this means that we would need to shut down the MBTA tracks for a weekend in order to complete this work. And we're defining a weekend as later in the evening on Friday to very early in the morning on Monday. And again, minimizing those disruptions to the T-riders. So in this operation, during this weekend, we would excavate to expose those micropiles, which were put in previously. We would then install the precast abutment caps on both sides and the precast approach slabs. And then once this operation is done and all of those elements are installed, we would then reinstall the ballast and the tracks, basically burying this work to be uncovered at a future date. Next slide, please. So now with the train traffic back open, our next step would be to install the new superstructure next to the existing, or rather assemble it next to the existing. Again, needing room for cranes to be able to work. And again, a lot of overhead work that poses a danger to, or could pose a danger to the general public in this area. So again, you see those blue girders being dropped in. Next slide, please. So this slide shows what that proposed superstructure would look like once it's complete. And then the final step would be to actually move that into its final position. Next slide. So again, a weekend track shutdown, again, Friday evening to early Monday morning. This allows us to be able to demolish the remaining portions of the existing bridge and then to use equipment called SPMTs. This is a self-propelled modular transporter. You can think of it as a big flatbed with lots of wheels that can move under its own power. This machine can raise the existing bridge up and essentially drive it into place, lower it down in its final location. And then by the end of the weekend, by early Monday morning, you go to the next slide, the tracks are back in place and trains are running for commuters Monday morning. So that essentially finishes off the bridge portion. And one more step we need to do here, which is to repave that section of Intervale Road, as I mentioned. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see that that portion of the road is repaved and restriped. And at that point, the road is reopened. Next slide. And then the site is cleaned up, access ramps removed, and the project is complete at that point. So as you can see, we've showed a closure of Intervale Road, so we want to also give you an idea of what a potential detour might look like during that closure. So I'll turn it back over to Bob and he can run through those detour routes.
Thanks, Andrew. We can go next slide. All right, so as Andrew indicated and walked through the different stages of construction, one of the overarching goals of this project was to figure out a way to allow this bridge to be replaced with minimal impacts to the commuter rail system and minimal impacts to the traveling public along Intervale Road. When there is an impact to the road, we are going to implement a detour, and I should say what we've got on the screen right now is a draft version of that proposed detour. To walk you through it, if you're traveling west to east, traveling towards the Intervale Road Bridge, if you were to, your southbound detour would be to take a right, and this is kind of shown with the green dotted line. You would take the right onto Oxbow Road, a left onto Glen. Once you got to Route 16, Washington Street, you take another left, and then a left onto Concord Street to get you around. If you were attempting to go northbound, and starting at that same location, that would be the solid green line. And you'd be taking a left onto Oxbow, which would then turn into Ridgeway Road, get you underneath Route I-90. You take a right onto Route 30, and then a right onto Park Road, and that would get you back around. Obviously, if you were coming from the east and traveling west, going towards the bridge, those would essentially be reversed. A couple of things to note. One is that all local access to residents that are on Intervale Road, you would have access at all points. There's no point where you would not have access. So it would essentially be signed as a dead end for that period of time. We would have variable message signs that will be located at all pertinent intersections, highlighting those detour routes, and those would be in place, providing that upfront traffic info at least 2 weeks in advance before the start of any construction. So there's plenty of time to acclimate to what those detours would be. We're currently coordinating with the town engineering department and police, fire, and ambulance emergency services to work through some of the finer points of this. But again, it's a draft, and I just wanted to highlight what that proposed detour would be. Next slide. I'll do next slide. Thank you. Next up, I'd like to highlight the proposed project schedule. As some of you might be aware, the site cleaning started this past fall of 2019. We're now in prepping the site, which is spring of 2020. We're proposing to do some of the foundation work in summer of 2020. As you saw in Andrew's slides, the partial demo of the portions of the existing bridge that are not currently carrying tracks, that would be in fall of 2020. The construction of the temporary shoring towers and the new bridge would be happening approximately spring of 2021. We'd be moving that new bridge into place in summer of 21, with the site cleanup concluding in the fall. So again, as I mentioned very early on in the presentation, while the full program is going to extend until approximately August of 2022, this particular bridge and this project will be complete approximately fall of 2021. And then our next time we'll meet with another public meeting here approximately late fall of 2020, just to provide some further updates as we continue to refine the design, the detours, and the schedule. Next slide. And lastly, how you can reach us. There's a few ways. One is we have a project website that's up. It's mbta.com/Intervale Road Bridge. If you go onto that website, you can add your email address, and we will provide e-blasts and other information as the project continues on, if you want to stay informed that way. You can email questions to us at any time using the next line is intervaleroadbridge@mbta.com. And we also have a 24-hour telephone hotline with the numbers right there. With that concludes the presentation portion of tonight, and we would open it up to questions and answers.
Thanks, Bob. This is John Doherty. I'm going to jump in here for one quick moment. I'd like to just point out that we refer to our 24-hour hotline. That hotline is not actually manned 24 hours. That is a telephone line that's available to ask questions. Email is fine also, obviously, but I just wanted to make that clear so that we do check the hotline, so-called hotline, and we'll respond if you do leave a message there. So with that, I'm gonna like to introduce Alexandra Smith. She's with our community engagement consultant, who is a part of the design build team, Regina Villa Associates. So Alex, you want to take it from here? She's going to facilitate the question and answer period.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Again, my name is Alexandra Smith. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at Regina Villa Associates. We're the firm assisting with the public outreach component of the Intervale Road Bridge Replacement Project. I'm now going to facilitate the question and answer portion. We will respond to questions and comments that have been submitted using the Q&A feature on Zoom, followed by those who use the raise hand feature on Zoom. First, though, we'd like to check and see if there are any elected officials present who may like to speak. If you're an elected official and you would like to speak, can you please use the raise hand feature now? John, would you like to take it from here for any elected officials?
Yes, apparently there are none. So we are, just so folks in the audience are aware, we are in communication with the local elected officials as well as town. We're working through the town manager to keep the Board of Selectmen updated. With that.
Okay, great. Again, anyone who has a question, you can type it into the Q&A feature, or you could raise your hand if you would like to speak. Okay, we have a question submitted from Judy Nitch. What will prevent commuters from taking Orchard Ave and Blake Road to get to the Mass Pike entrance?
Hello, Judy. That's a really good question. The full aspects of the detour are still a work. They're under development, and we are working with the police and fire and first responders, as well as Tom Cullen, the Department of Public Works, and Engineering Department. So that's a good question, and I don't actually know what the answer will be, but we will certainly be working with, in particular, the Weston Police Department to make sure that we can, implement something into the TMP so that we will be able to avoid that from occurring.
John, I could add to that if you'd like.
Great, thanks.
Yep, because we do recognize that Orchard Ave is a private roadway. So we purposefully, in developing this detour, became aware of that and are developing the signed detour to really stay on public roads. So again, as John mentioned, we are aware of that, but again, we will be continuing to work with the town engineer to figure out what options might be available to try to dissuade people from taking any shortcuts.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. We have a question now from Franz Lober. Can Intervale be widened under the bridge?
Thanks for the question, Franz. No, there's multiple reasons why we're not going to do that. And the first being that we have been in contact with the Weston Historic Commission and have had a determination as well from the Mass Historic Commission. They consider the granite abutments of the bridge to have historic value, and we're going to comply with their requests to leave the bridge as is. There are also community concerns about traffic flow in the area, understanding that the reason you would ask the question is for that very reason. But there are others who we've heard from that perhaps don't want that actually to take place. Additionally, we're really in a position where we need to get this project moving. The bridge is old. And we really want to try to make something happen quickly here. Thanks for the question, Franz. Back to you, Alex.
We're going to call upon someone who has raised their hand. Your area code is 781. The last 3 digits are 619. You will be unmuted now.
Okay, your microphone's open.
Hi, this is just Molly in Representative Peisch's office. I just wanted to clarify that the representative is unavailable tonight because the House is in full formal right now, so she couldn't finagle 2 different types of technology. So I took over the call for her.
Okay, Molly, thank you very much for identifying yourself, and we'll be glad to continue dialogue, as we said last night with at the other meeting with Representative Peisch.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we have another question from Judy Nitsch. She asks, the proposed vertical clearance above Intervale Road was stated to be 14. Is that the existing clearance or have you increased it?
I'm going to defer to Bob on that question.
Thanks, John. It's a good question. Right now, the bridge is signed for a vertical clearance of 13 feet 0 inches. We will be providing a bridge that provides 14 foot 0 inches of vertical clearance. I think if you went out there and measured it today, it would be a number different than 13 foot 0, but we will be increasing what we can sign that opening for. The vertical clearance increase was essentially the maximum we could do based on the structure type, the need to hold the track alignment profile, and the need to provide ballast for the bridge. So we tried to keep the bridge as thin as possible and increase the vertical clearance as much as we can, understanding that we were somewhat limited with the geometry. It should be 14 foot is what it'll be at the end of the project.
Okay, do we have any more questions? If anyone would like to speak and provide a verbal question or comment, you can do so now by using the raise hand feature.
Hey, Alex.
Yes.
Well, it looks like there's one more question.
Yep,
John,
we just got one more question from Judy Nitsch. She asks, if you are increasing the vertical clearance, will you sign it for higher vehicles? It's too dangerous for larger trucks.
Okay, again, thanks, Judy. That's a good question. And issues related to the vertical clearance, I'm going to defer to Bob for the time being. So Bob, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. No, it's a great question. That's something we're going to discuss with the town, recognizing that I think what you're saying is that the signage may be deterring trucks from going down that road. So it's something that we will be discussing with the town and finding an appropriate way to sign that, taking into account those the safety considerations.
Okay, it seems there are no more questions. I'm going to close out the question and answer at this time. We want to thank everyone for your feedback. If you have any additional questions that come up, you can feel free to email the project team. Again, that's Intervale RD as in road at mbta.com. You can also sign up to receive project email updates through the project website. You can do this by going to mbta.com/IntervaleRD click contact, and then click sign up for Intervale Road Bridge updates. A recording of this meeting will be posted online as soon as possible. We will also post the Q&A report online for the website as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex, and thanks to everybody involved in the meeting. Thanks for those of you who joined us. And again, as Alex mentioned, please communicate with us via the information on the screen now. And I'd like to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and stay safe. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Yep.